Okay, here we go. Let's go through the UV texturing, UV mapping process first. Make a block. Looks good. With the block selected, go to Create UVs, Automatic Mapping. And now we can open up the texture editor here, the UV texture editor. You can also open it up either by clicking that icon or by going up to Display or Window UV Texture Editor. Those both work. Here are the UVs generated by the automatic mapping. Now it's time for me to sew these suckers together. So I go to Edge Mode, click on an edge, go here to Move and Sew Selected Edges. Do the same thing over here. This is it here. Same thing over here. Voila. Down here. And then last but not least, choose our final seam side there. There we go. Now to move these into the center, I need to select UVs. So I right click, choose UVs, click and drag, W for the move tool, and drag them into the center. That's pretty close to being a square, so that looks good to me. Alright, now that I've got them in the center, I'm going to generate a UV snapshot. So I go up here to Polygons, UV snapshot. And I actually am going to choose a MayaIFF because Photoshop handles that now. It didn't used to. So, and then I'd make sure I save it in a place where I can find it. Okay. Give it a name here. Let's call it UV Snap Demo. Okay. And then make sure my resolution is high enough. I recommend going to 1000 by 1000 to start off with. And then say OK. Then from Photoshop, do File, Open, and go back to where I saved that to. And UV Snap Demo, there it is, Open. And you can probably barely see it, but there are my UVs laid out over a transparent background, which is a nice advantage to using the MayaIFF. It doesn't do that in Photoshop by default. So let me see if I can make you see this a little bit better. Curves adjustment here. Alright, now you can see the UVs a little bit better there. So now I'm going to get my texture and bring it in here. So I've got a file already opened up right here. And I'm just going to select all, and I'm going to copy a merged version of that. Switch back to my UV Snap demo. Paste that in there. Okay. Drag it to the bottom so that I can see my UVs there. And I think I'm just going to scale this texture. Maybe I'll scale it down. And to scale something down, you go, I just did the free transform command, which is edit, free transform, or command T, and then hold down the shift key as you're scaling to move it around. I'm going to right click on my layer over here and say duplicate layer. So now I'm going to have two of these here, so I can drag the top layer down using the move tool like this, and maybe I'll rotate it around. Edit, transform, flip horizontal. And I'll just kind of lay it on top here. And then one of my favorite tricks is to lay that on top enough and then use the eraser, E, and I'll choose a big old fuzzy brush here, like a 200 or 300 brush. Make sure it's fuzzy. Set the opacity all the way up to 100. Flow back to 100. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to erase just the top layer here, just the edge of it. And so I get a really cheap kind of cloning tool effect. I just take that out there, kind of play with that a little bit, just feathering the edges a little. And that's a really down and dirty way to kind of expand on a texture. Kind of cheesy, but so am I. And yeah, that looks pretty good. Oops, not too much there. And yeah, looks pretty good. So now I'll remember to, I'll write something on here. Or I'll make a mark, just so you can see. I'll make another layer. Brush. Make something really obvious. And let's just drag something across there, and then maybe across here. I don't know. So we'll have something to look at. Alright, so now we'll say turn off your UVs so you don't get those exported. File, well, I'll go ahead and save this as a Photoshop file first. That way I can come back and edit it and turn off those horrible pink marks later. But then file, save as, we'll save a JPEG version. And okay, go back to Maya, go to object mode, choose assign new material, Lambert, close the texture editor for right now. On the color channel, first of all, I'll call this, give it a name. In the color channel, click on the checker box. From the Create Render Node options, choose File. From the File node that just got created, go over here and click on the folder to choose an image for the file. There's my mat right there with the pink marks on it, the JPEG, say Open. That brings it out here, and that should do it. Alright, so there we go. It updated it here after I kicked it in the head a few times off camera, but did update. There it is. There's our lovely stone texture. And you can see the pink marks that seamlessly overlap there to show us that we've got a seamless texture over those corners. And let's see if we get the same problem. Yeah. So you notice now if I go to rotate my object, so now I've closed the texture editor, I'm not talking about UVs anymore, I'm just trying to move this thing around in 3D space, I get this horrible texture shift, which I don't like at all. So what I'm going to do, here's the short way to get rid of that problem, is go up here to Edit, Delete All by Type, History. This is a very important thing to learn how to do as you get into more complicated modeling. Once I've deleted the history, I can rotate my box, and the map doesn't rotate anymore. Or I can move it, I can do whatever I want to it. And the texture has been stuck onto the stone. So I can call back up the texture editor, and it's still there. There's my map. Here are my UVs. I can go back to Photoshop and make changes to the map and resave it and reload it. And I'm good to go. So that's our kind of down and dirty way to texture your block.